all the Republicans on stage last night in New Hampshire. Did you pick anybody? Did you eliminate anybody? We'll talk about it today, live on The View from a Pew.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 244-0077. That's 244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, welcome. It is the fourth day of August in the Lord's year 2015. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and we're back live with View from a Pew with Tom Coates on a Tuesday, which means we're going to rattle your brain with a biblical worldview of politics and current events. But hang on, I want to hear from you. I'm still asking the question. If the caucus were held today, who would you vote for? I'm not saying your favorite. I'm saying today. If today was the day, it's a Tuesday, it's election day, you're going to stop by the poll down at your church or your YMCA or whatever it is on your way home tonight, you're going to vote. You got to vote, right? So who would you cast your vote for? 244-0077, 515-244-0077. My guest today is Brian Myers. Brian is one of the co-hosts of Caffeinated Thoughts you hear at every weekend at 10 and 6 on Saturdays, right? 8 and 6, 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Yeah. And you do that show with Vandersickle, Wand.
Let's try that again. Shane
Vanderhart. That's right. We know him, don't we?
We've had him on the show a number of times.
Yeah,
Vandersickle.
I never get names right. If Tom didn't have such a simple name, although for years I did call him. What was that I called you? I called you Tom. Frank, what's that long leather thing that John Wayne wears that I've got one of those, that long leather coat that country guys wear? I'll think of it later.
Or the slicker, right?
No, Tom Slicker. That'd be good.
Your old liberal partner used to call me Scrooge McDuck.
Scrooge McDuck, that's right. Yeah. That was one of the nicer things he said about you.
I think that was...
What? No.
Well, that's when he was...
That's
when he was living in his mom's basement. Did he ever get out of there?
He did. He's actually got a significant other, and they have an apartment, I think, in Grimes, and they brought home a darling baby dog a couple weeks or a couple years ago.
You would have really shocked me had you said baby there, Mac.
Yeah. So, he's good. And he'd come on with me every once in a while, and then I introduced him to Frank. And he hadn't been on since.
Oh, okay.
And that's a true story.
Well, okay, I believe you. You asked me one time, not that long ago, maybe in the last year, you asked me if it was all right to bring Bradshaw on, and I said, well, I don't know. I can think of people I'd rather be on than Bradshaw.
Yeah, if you have to spend 52 hours a year with somebody, Bradshaw wouldn't be on that list.
No.
Well, that's okay. All right, and Brian, what makes you so passionate about current events, biblical worldview, life in general?
Well, the thing that makes me passionate about politics is the biblical worldview. I mean, if I had no biblical worldview, perhaps I wouldn't care one way or the other, or wouldn't have much of an opinion that's informed in any meaningful way. But I think my interest in the culture and politics in general is just simply because I find myself compelled to be involved in that stuff because I'm a Christian.
Do you think the older I get and the more I know Jesus, the less I want to get involved with politics? And I never thought, as a guy who's been talking politics for 40-some years, I never thought I'd say that. But I'm just, it's like it's a game that the accuser's running, and there's nothing we can do to make a difference.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with you that at the end of the day, we know who wins the victory. Okay, so we don't need to get terribly concerned about the fight at some level because we know who wins in the end. And we also know that the spiritual is far more important than the temporal. So I'm right there with you. Having said that, we still, I think, are duty bound to try to uphold those things that we know Scripture sets forth.
but we failed.
In some respects, we have.
I mean, I won't speak for you. I failed. I failed. In my lifetime, we've had divorce run rampant. Now, I have to admit, I didn't have much to do that in the 60s and 70s, but in the 80s, I was guilty of a divorce. I allowed us to, I guess, I mean, I was only 17, so I wasn't old enough to vote, but Roe versus Wade is law, has been for 40 years or whatever it is. I'm not down there pounding on Planned Parenthood's door. I do it on the microphone real well. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of talking out loud. Maybe it's not proper. I don't mean to put you in a difficult position, but I just, especially with this cycle.
Oh,
and Joni Ernst's bill, getting turned down yesterday in the Senate to defund Planned Parenthood of $500 million of your money and my money. We can't even get that done as Republicans.
Sure.
With these video,
No, look, we're definitely in a battle here, and things aren't going very well in some respects. Which, from my perspective, is no reason for us to say, "Well, that's it. Let's just throw in the towel."
Yeah.
And one other thing, Mac, I hear a lot of people lay the blame at the feet of the church, so to speak, and not to suggest that the church doesn't have its failings. Clearly, it does. But what people need to remember is that ship actually sailed a century ago. We went through a period in the 20s in which the mainline denominations all liberalized in their theology. It took several generations for that to catch up in terms of its effects on the culture. Took a while. But it was in the 20s that they started rejecting the cardinal doctrines of the faith. Every last one, I shouldn't say that, but most of the mainline denominations, that's when it happened. We're seeing the effects of that. So it's really...
Boy, aren't you true. 100 years.
100 years ago.
That's all it took. So 5% of the time since Jesus walked on this earth. Less than 5%.
Well, look at the difference in the culture now compared to the way it was when we were kids, guys. I mean, we were... you'd watch an episode of Leave It to Beaver. That was my life.
Right.
Growing up in my early years in Ankeny, Iowa. Mm-hmm. And it's not that way anymore. And look how quickly it all went, started circling the drain.
Accelerated. Guys, when I do my Bible reading, one year I'll do the New Testament, the next year I'll do the Old Testament. I'm on the Old Testament now, and I'm reading through how these kings of Israel and Judah would, they would either hold to the Lord or they would turn their backs, and oftentimes they started well and didn't end well. And then God ended up, chastising the nation of Israel or Judah to bring them back. And, I'm looking at some of this stuff. We're going to talk more about it later, but the latest Planned Parenthood video. I mean, the nation of Israel went into the Promised Land because of the reprehensible practices of the Arabs at that point. The Philistines and what have you, and the engaging of even child. They would take the babies and they would sacrifice them to Baal. And these types of they would practice areas of deviancy that the Lord found reprehensible. And so He said, slaughter them, kill them all, every man, woman, and child. Go in there and take that land. And I'm looking at the practices that we've got now. We just recently have codified through a Supreme Court deviancy in the marriage area. We are now, it's one thing for the German people to say, I didn't know they were marching those Jews off to the death camps. We have week after week after week of the kind of heinous practices which I'm not so sure some of this wouldn't make some of the Baal worshipers back in the day blush. And yet, as Max said, we can't even defund them from the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
Every single Democrat, save for two, voted to keep the funding. And if we can't take federal funds away, much less criminalize, put people in jail, doesn't the Lord at some point turn His back on the nation that once was founded under God? Reagan said, a nation that's no longer under God is gone under. I just wonder how long will it take God to come around and chastise this nation. I don't know when. I don't know how. I don't know what method he's going to use. But I feel confident that that's going to happen at some point, guys.
Well, that's just it, Tom. I think at some level we've already seen that. I mean, we're already seeing that.
Yeah.
In fact, some of the things that we are talking about, my personal belief is that those things aren't just going to lead to judgment. Those are actually things that are signs of judgment in and of themselves.
Well, if Brian Myers is here along with Tom Coates, Frank is producing. If I understand what I'm learning, and I'm a young Christian, Jesus mugged me, 5 years ago, and so this is all new to me, and I'm so grateful I get to do this. I don't want to go into a long deal. It's just cool how he prepared me for 40 years doing secular radio to now come into Des Moines' first Christian radio station like this. And where are we sitting, guys? We're sitting on the sign of an old monastery. Did you know that?
No,
Merle Hay Mall was
no idea.
all the way through the 1800s and early 1900s until 1955.
Appropriate, isn't it?
This was a monastery. It was a Catholic monastery. And then the mall came here, and now we're doing this. But if I understand the term wrath means absence of God. It's not that God does anything to you. He just pulls his umbrella away.
I don't know. It looked to me like he visited his wrath on numerous occasions in the Old Testament in a number of ways. Sometimes he used other nations, the Philistines, the Assyrians, and others to chastise and to beat up and to slaughter and to take his people to repentance. Other times he used the angel of God. I mean, so there were times that the angel of death, and so I'm not sure whether he will allow the natural elements to to create. We got flooding on one end of the country, and we've got drought on the other, and we've got fires. But that, I think, is nothing compared to what we deserve. I mean, what was the king and the evil queen's name that Elijah, he went up against all the Baal priests and challenged them, and they cut themselves. And
Jezebel and Ahab, Tom.
Yeah, and is the guy we got up there now, Barack Obama, any better than they were? I mean, I'm looking at the things that that he winks at and he does aggressively against the Constitution, against the people, and against God. And yet he still has a loyal following. Maybe it's a minority, but it's a strong minority that drinks the Kool-Aid and follows him blindly. And I cannot think that at some point, we will be the recipients of God's wrath in one sense or another. And I know
right. And Tom, you touched on something I think that's really appropriate as well. As we see in the Old Testament plenty of times where the natural elements are used. Might not be the Philistines come in and destroy the army. Mm-hmm. It might just be all sorts of things like famine and so on and so forth.
Right.
My wife and I just this morning were reading, I think it was Deuteronomy 28. And you get all the promises of blessing at the front end, and then at the back, you have all of the promises of curses. If you don't, if you will not walk in God's ways, here's what's going to happen. And it's just this litany of terrible things.
Where's that at?
I think it's at the end of Deuteronomy 28.
Well, you see, how can these guys be so stupid? How can they see these great miracles and this great blessing that the Lord gave them and then still deviate? And yet then we look at our own nation. I mean, we've been greatly blessed by God, and our founders said, we're a nation under God. And
we're doing the same thing.
And we're doing the same thing. Human nature doesn't change, does it?
Oh, boy. Well, all right. Let's take our first break. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about the fifth recording from Planned Parenthood, what happened in the Senate yesterday. I've already been blown away, so I don't need to tell you how blown away I am again. Later on, a little bit of the New Hampshire Republican gathering last night and what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. I didn't see Trump. The newspaper had written something negative about him, and so he decided not to show up. And how is that playing? Because the man's holding double-digit leads in the Iowa polls, all the Iowa polls. Donald Trump is. So we'll talk about that. By the way, Tom, it was a duster. John Wayne would wear a long leather duster, so you would be Tom Duster.
I don't remember that.
We're coming back live here on The View from a Pew on 99.3 The Truth.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 21 minutes after the hour on this 4th day of August in the Lord's year 2015. You're getting ready for the fair, aren't you? You're not doing the fair booth this year.
Nope.
This will be the first time in how many years?
I don't know. Maybe been 9 years since we've been doing the fair booth. Maybe even longer. I lose track of time. But, yeah, it was such an expense, drain on resources, our staff. You know, with the varied industries, a 12-hour stint, so we ran 2 shifts, 2 people each. The financial and the human resources cost just finally got us to the point where we said we're not going to do it this year, and I'm very glad because I would be busy getting ready. We always a lot to do, so I've been very grateful that we made that decision last year to stop it.
Don't fear, because if you have State Fair withdrawals, our close and personal friend Chris Roloff is thinking about us being live at the fair next year.
Not this year. It's too late to make.
Too late this year.
But yeah, I would enjoy. I would enjoy doing some of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Well, here's what I'm gonna try to do. About 2 weeks before the fair starts, I'm gonna try to drink some Ebola, and then I'm gonna be too sick to go out there, and then you boys can do it. Okay.
Did you enjoy doing it? 98.3.
I hated every minute of it.
Okay.
I love the people. I loved meeting people who never had an opportunity to come up and talk to us. You know, because when you do country radio or other radio and you do remotes and people come up, you can't, it's hard to do remotes in talk radio. And so I hated everything about it except the people that were there. I liked the big pickle barrel at the general store. I like the big gyro over there off the main triangle.
Yes.
And those guys that make that flatbread, they fry their own flatbread back there in that Indian area. And the pork chop on a stick. But other than that,
we'll probably get out there. But I will miss being at the booth and talking to some of the people that come by and want to talk about the commercials and this and that. And getting their own personal stories about perhaps ways that consumer credit has helped them in the past, and those were, one time I went out there and within 2 hours I had 3 personal testimonies of how much we'd helped them and turn their lives around, help them pay out of debt. So I'm going to miss that, Mac, but every other aspect of getting this booth ready and manning it and driving out there back and forth every day, no, I won't.
Well, like I said, if Chris has his way, then you and I'll be out there live with the pickle barrel.
Okay.
All right. Brian Myers is here, and he's a co-host on Caffeinated Thoughts, 8 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Yes, sir.
On Saturday. It's really a good show. It's one of our better shows on the whole radio station. I wish.
Thanks, Mac.
I wish you guys were daily.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I enjoy listening to you.
I listened to you as we were leaving Ames. I listened to your show.
Oh, coming back. Yeah. I was listening to you going up a little bit, and then, of course, Steve came on, I think, at 11, and then we got the big Trump story right away from Steve. That was fun.
Hey, we had a great time up there. I don't know about you. I had a ball.
Yeah. No,
it was great.
Yeah, that was a wonderful event. And we're talking about the Family Leader Summit that we were all at 3 weeks ago, I guess, 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right. We started talking about the Planned Parenthood thing and kind of got into end of times. And it's funny. We all got off the microphones at the break and went, "Oh, it was fun. Let's talk about Revelation some more."
No, that's my fault, Mac. I say I just
that's all right.
Thinking about it as I read the Old Testament and comparing where we're at now with where they were then. So that's my fault. I think the next book that I dive deep into for a year with one of my, the guys that I have, I think we're going to do Revelation. I've always been scared of Revelation. I don't know if I want to know that stuff. It's going to happen no matter what. I'm not going to change it. I can't pray for God's will to change. It's set in course, so I'm not sure I want to see the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. But I also know that at this point in my walk, I need the whole 4 corners of the Bible. I love the Gospels. I've gone through most of the Old Testament, been through Paul's letters, but man, I haven't touched Revelation yet. So I think we're going to try to do that next year in my Wednesday study. All right. So I see you've got the thing there about the federal judge trying to block the videos by the anti-abortion group, and they basically thumbed their nose at the judge.
They did. It'll be interesting to see what happens now, but they've moved forward and released that video anyway.
Yeah. What was the grounds that this judge thought he had any authority, and I think that's the proper word, jurisdiction, authority.
You're right, Mac. Yeah.
To tell them they can't follow the First Amendment.
Yeah, that was a question I had as well, and I think it had to do with the judge's belief that there would be irreparable harm to certain parties if the videos continue to be released. Now, I think that's kind of a goofy argument to make.
Well, you better not show the Quick Trip video of the guy punching the clerk out, too, because that's...
Well, that's just it. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that I would think would be covered, under the First Amendment, and so it struck me as odd right out of the gate.
Which court was this again?
This was
California.
Judge William Orrick, federal judge out of San Francisco, I think.
Well, it's a shock. I would be shocked if they could find a conservative judge that would follow the standards set out in the law out there in San Francisco. That is really the area of fruits and nuts, guys. I mean, I've been out there a number of times, and it's something else.
Well, and I had somebody remind me the other day that what happens in California happens in Iowa like 10 years later, and I thought, oh no. So in this video, there's more of the same. However, in this video, I think at one point, the woman being interviewed, the employee at Planned Parenthood, the high up at Planned Parenthood, said that she could get you an entire fetus.
Yeah. 22 weeks, I think they showed one on display. was just horrific. I mean, as bad as the last one was, it seemed like every subsequent one has a little bit more grisly aspect to it. And I heard a guy call into the talk show today, and his wife works for Planned Parenthood. Well, they do a lot of good work. And those things have been tremendously edited. They do a lot more than just kill babies and dump their parts in a bag. How can you defend this stuff?
That would like me being accused of murdering someone. I stand up and I say, but look at all the good I've done.
That's it exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, but Mr. McCoy, that you still murdered some. Yeah, but I run into hundreds and hundreds of people a day, and I haven't murdered them at all. I've only murdered one person. Come on.
No, the media and people like Hillary Clinton, she pledged allegiance to the Planned Parenthood flag again the other day. They would much rather focus in on Cecil the lion than they would talk about the millions of mangled babies that we've had in this country in the recent years. This is absolutely atrocious, and I know how angry that many of us are that the U.S. Senate seems powerless to do anything about it. We have $500 million a year, guys, go into Planned Parenthood. They say, well, none of those dollars go directly for abortion.
That's
it's
a
like
shell game.
I'm running a business, and if you subsidize one aspect of my business, you're subsidizing the whole thing. This is not even a decent semantics game, guys. Now, either the conservative Christian electorate is going to be so outraged they will come out en masse and vote for the most conservative candidate they can find next year, or they will be so discouraged over the wave election that we had most recently in 2014 that they will just turn off and they will do a little bit what like Mac said to begin with. I'm going to lose interest. I'm not even going to go vote.
Just check out.
It's the devil's business. I'm turning around. Now, Mac, we talked about Trump last week, and when we were talking about that, you mentioned his name as somebody that you were favoring. And
yes.
I'm wondering, now you were up there in Ames. We were talking about the Ames. You heard him stumble around and not be able to really answer the question properly had he ever sought God's forgiveness.
Right.
You also know that a few years ago, the man declared himself to be pro-abortion. They like to use the semantics on it. They call it pro-choice. Now he claims he's pro-life. Without any demonstrable spiritual turnaround in his life, that doesn't sound plausible to me. I'm still curious. It bothered me, Mac, when I left this show the other day and you were declaring some support for Donald Trump. I then ran into a fellow I will not mention, but he is a very moneyed, very influential, mainstream, Republican.
You can say it, Brian Myers.
Big money.
That's me.
And the first thing he wanted to talk about is how much he's liking what Trump is saying. And so I go from a secular, big money, establishment Republican to a Christian conservative, and they're both talking about Donald Trump, and I can't see much about the man that is legitimate from the standpoint of a Christian conservative perspective. Now, I know that 36% of the Republicans are now saying, Brian, that they will not vote for Trump under any circumstances. So where are we going to be? The women do not like him. Last time around, Romney got 14% more of the women vote than Barack Obama did, which shocks a lot of people. The women in large numbers don't like Trump. They find him boisterous. They find him braggadocious. They do not like his mannerisms, the women generally do not, according to the polls. What are we going to do if we get stuck with Donald Trump? He can't win a general election, and the only way he can really put the hurt to us is if he runs as an independent, and he polls the 30% of the Republican votes as an independent. I still say that's his biggest danger. He's a dangerous man.
Look, here's what's going on with Donald Trump. I believe, and Mac, you tell me if I'm wrong here, because you've apparently expressed some interest in Trump. It strikes me that what we've got in Donald Trump is an illustration of just how bent out of shape conservative voters have become. They are so ticked off at the Republican establishment. They keep voting with the GOP, and nothing happens. Election after election after election. So what we see here with Donald Trump is we see a way for these guys to express how angry and frustrated they are. I don't see that lasting. Because here's the thing, we have a field right now. It's actually too big. But one thing I think you can say with confidence, this is a solid field. I don't know about you guys. There's probably a good half a dozen of these candidates I could vote for.
No question about it.
That being the case, I am confident that one of these guys can say and do all the stuff that Donald Trump is saying and doing that's resonating with people. These guys can do that too, and they'll be better candidates. That's where I'm at.
Mac, you watched the forum yesterday. One of the things I kept hearing was Jindal's comment about what he would do with sanctuary cities, mayors, the city itself, hold them criminally responsible. If your wife is murdered, she's raped, your home is robbed, it's set on fire by illegal aliens that are being allowed to walk around the streets of this city with impunity, and they refuse to follow the immigration laws and enforce the laws that are on the books, then they should be held responsible. And Bobby Jindal is saying that. I think much of what Bobby and a few of the others are saying is similar to what Trump is saying. They're just, I guess they don't have the primetime TV show and some of the media credentials, and our culture is enamored with the Kardashians. I mean, we have a culture that worships media people, whether they deserve any media attention or not. And this kind of celebrity status that Trump has enjoyed for a long time is playing out.
Well, I just want you to know that I find Caitlyn sexy. Okay. All right. We're going to take our next break. When we come back, I'm going to weigh in on the Trump thing a little bit. I think what Brian said is very intelligent. I think we're in the middle of the movie here, and we're getting kind of bored. And in comes Donald Trump, and he's an animated character that entertains us, and at least me, gives me a little hope. Hope for what? Let's talk about it.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do. What type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
22 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News at 3, and then at 3:03, the Steve Deace. Back from vacation, over his birthday, over the hump, refreshed and hot, and ready to talk to you about what's going on. That's coming up here at 3:03 to 5 o'clock here on 99.3 The Truth. And just so it's clear, because I've even got some Facebook pushback. No, I don't think Caitlin's sexy. I'm
glad that you clarified that.
I guess I needed to clarify that, because that was such an outlandish statement that somebody might even think I mean it. So I think that's one of the most...
Oh, dear.
I think that's just one of the most bizarre things. Here's what I do sometimes, and I know you know this, Tom, but you don't. Remember Mork from Mork?
Sure I do.
Okay. Sometimes I look at the world. Remember he had that big glass bubble that he'd look at and he could see different parts of the earth and watch what was going on? Sometimes I'm Mork from Ork, and I look down at Earth and I go, what? And I look through his eyes at what's going on. So you've got a superstar male who was on, notably, the cover of the most successful sports magazine, cereal boxes, whatever.
Right, Wheaties, yeah.
And then he decides he's going to turn into a woman. Now, imagine what Mork from Ork is saying about that. You've got people crying, like you said. What did you say? Over 250,000 signatures.
230, I think.
230,000 signatures to have that dentist in Minnesota sent down to Zimbabwe and be held accountable for shooting a lion. And the petition to defund Planned Parenthood has
31,000.
And what does Mork say about that? What does he look at? Because he can look back. Because for him, it's just a flash. And he can look back and watch Germany support this guy called Adolf Hitler, who ended up killing 6 million Jews, and we're all up about it. And I am too. The Holocaust is horrible.
Of course.
But we've killed 55, 56, 57 million?
Yeah.
Unborn babies?
And the Germans, to at least their benefit, were not treated to footage on TV,
right?
Showing the Jews marched in there and tortured and murdered. So
they could claim some level of ignorance.
Exactly
which
right. We don't have that kind of deniability now, guys. That's why I think Mork or God looking down and seeing this kind of apathy towards that kind of an abomination, at some point it just rises the level of stench that he has to do something to us.
I thought it was a big deal that Jesus came because I didn't wash my hands before I ate pork, because I had lust in my heart over women, because I looked at another man's car and thought, I deserve that. No, I have to sit here and say, God, I live in a country, and the people that I voted for allow the murdering of unborn babies. And oh, by the way, you're going to pay for it. I mean, when we go before the judgment seat, are the three of us going to be held responsible for the fact that we lived in a nation where elected officials, our officials, voted to not only allow the murder of unborn babies, but to fund it? Are we going to be held liable for that? I hope God's grace is big enough that he knows my heart and doesn't just look at the country as a big stamp.
But this is also the reason, we go back to your comment earlier, why we cannot stand back and disengage from the political process. I think we're going to be, because we are in a nation, a republic, that is ruled by the ballot box. And so the deciphering that you said, Brian, of certain candidates, maybe Walker, maybe Rubio, maybe Jindal, somebody that is going to be strong enough and tested enough that can get in and get some of these things undone. I was with Bobby.
But none of those people are getting any favorable poll results. Jindal's at one. I love Bobby Jindal. You and I have met him several times.
Although he has in Iowa, he's moved up to fourth now, Mac. There's two polls that show him at fourth.
So
in
it's
the
what?
Iowa.
It's Trump, then Bush, And then is it Walker?
Well,
Walker's got to be in there somewhere.
Yeah, Walker's in there. I don't think Bush hits into that number in Iowa, but yeah. But he moved up to fourth in 2 different polls I showed. And, of course, the thing that he's banking on right now is he has to get one of those 4 or 5 tickets coming out of Iowa. He's got to get himself elevated up enough so he can get on the platform. He won't make the debate platform Thursday for good or ill. But the point is that we need somebody that is going to have – I don't think we can have a Bush. I think if we get a Jeb Bush that's going to get in there and manage it and be just a little bit better than Barack Obama, but be establishment, there just won't be any hope if we get another establishment Republican, somebody like that.
What do you mean hope? For us? For our agenda?
Well, there won't be any hope in the Republican Party and the Christian conservatives or any hope for our nation.
But it's so unpopular to be a Christian now. I mean, never, of course, I've only been hanging around this group for 5 years, but I know that the first 50 years of my life when I thought a Christian, people would say, are you a Christian? No. You people are way too joyous and silly, and I'm a God guy. I'm an old line Jew. All right, I'm not Jewish, but I'm an old line Jew. I believe in God and the 10 Commandments and who's Paul and why do I need Jesus?
You got a Celtic last name now, so you can't be Jewish. You're
kind of like a Pharisee. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was. I had God on my side, and I was following rules, and the rules that I couldn't follow, I would go to God and ask for forgiveness. You know, that's what we do in the old liturgy. I'm Episcopalian by birth, so there's a whole thing in our liturgy when we confess our sins, and then we take communion and stuff like that. What, do you want to say something? All right, Tom, get your headphones here because the big verse wants to talk.
All right.
It seems like the Republicans are just in a race to see who can manage the decay.
Another way of saying it.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was actually pretty good.
Yeah. All right, so I don't think Donald Trump is going to be our next president. But I'm having a lot of fun watching him because the merry-go-round the narrative just drives me crazy. And when I hear what I want to hear, nobody backs him up. Jindal, Tom and I sat with Bobby Jindal, I don't know, a couple months ago for a half hour, whatever it was. He's got it. He's got the leadership. He's got the experience. He's got a heart for Christ. He understands how to implement it.
That guy's got a brain, too.
Yeah.
Sharp
but what's
guy.
happening? He's hardly anything, I've told Tom this, and I'll tell you this, Brian. I think I'm not predicting. Maybe I am predicting. Anyway, I think it's going to be Bush and Perry. I think Bush is going to get the nomination. He's going to grab Perry. Why? Because every good president needs a dum-dum. I'm sorry. I like Rick Perry, but he's that guy that pronounces things wrong and can't remember one field of the thing.
You think he'd be Bush's Joe Biden? In it?
Yeah, and now you've got Florida and you've got Texas, and think about those votes. Think about those electoral votes. Because, guys, when it comes a year from right now...
You are so cynical.
I know.
Wouldn't Kasich be a better choice? I mean, Ohio's even more of a swing state.
Well, Kasich would be good,
I don't think Texas is as much of a swing state as Ohio.
No,
I don't believe what you're saying, but I mean, if I were thinking along those lines, I'd worry about Ohio.
See, what
you got to have Florida, and you got to have Ohio.
I want Trump to find Jesus and then get elected, and maybe don't tell anybody he finds Jesus until after November 2nd, because see, I think something happened that Saturday. We all were up there. I think God planted a seed inside of Donald Trump's heart. I think he's thrown 1 million mustard seeds at him. But I think somebody that day, the Holy Spirit said something to him. Hey, what do you mean you've never asked God for forgiveness? Isn't that kind of a natural thing to go to your Creator and say, I messed up part of your creation and your plan, I'm sorry? Maybe what we're going to see is we're going to see a born-again Donald Trump. And that $9 billion is going to go for charity. Kind of like, what's his name in Seattle, who's Microsoft's guy, Gates. He gives it all to the liberal agenda. Yeah. What if all of a sudden Donald Trump finds Jesus and he gives it to the conservative agenda?
What makes you think that, Mac? I mean, it's nice to say that, but
I don't know.
Where's the evidence for that thought?
It was the look in his face when he got asked that question. Luntz said, I'm sorry, I need to bring you back to the question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever asked God for forgiveness? And It was just a look in his face. And it was like, if he's not evil, if he's got a chance to be one of the elect, I think that was the moment that the Holy Spirit started a fire in him. Maybe I'm just hoping. I don't know. Maybe that's the only reason God put him through this. Yeah, anything is possible with God, Brian said. All right, last break, coming back live here on The Truth, 99.3. Just call Tom Sexy.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 10 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News. And then, of course, the Steve Deace back live in his home market right here in central Iowa, 3 to 5 every afternoon on 99.3 The Truth. Let's talk a little bit about Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about the other side of the ticket. The conversation that we were having before the microphones came on is, and I want to hear your theory, because this is an interesting theory, what Obama is going to do to Hillary and Bill.
Okay. The latest poll out, ladies and gentlemen, shows on the Democrat side, Hillary Clinton continues to be in a funk. And I'm reading from Gary Bauer's end-of-day report, which I mentioned before. It's a fascinating read at times. But it shows that just 48% of those polled view her negatively, while 37% view her positively, a 15-point swing from just last month. Women aren't embracing her either. Among female voters, 44% of the females view her negatively, while 41% view her positively, and that's where she thinks she got her support, with women. Now, we were talking off the air. I have thought for some time, I don't know if I've said it on the show, but I've thought for some time that Joe Biden likely gets in. This goes back to some of the fire and everything that went on back the last election, back in 2012. When Barack Obama felt like he was in trouble before the debates and before the hurricane hit in there, he was actually in some of the polls running behind Romney after Romney took him to task on the first debate. And so he went to Bill Clinton and he asked Bill Clinton to go out on the stump.
Right.
That's what his advisor said you need to do. So Bill Clinton cut the deal that he in turn would support Hillary in the 2016 election. Now, he gets elected and then he goes to renege on it. Surprise, surprise, Barack Obama can't be trusted. That's a shock to everybody here in this studio. So Bill and Hillary Clinton demand to have a dinner sit down with Michelle and Barack, where Bill Clinton proceeds to take him to task. I did what I was supposed to. I went out on the stump and I sold you as a decent fella, even though I knew to the contrary you weren't. And Barack Obama ignores him and treats him like a slug, and there's ice forming between Michelle and Hillary. Anyway, he said, well, but Biden is my vice president. How can I not support him? And Bill said, you promised that you would support my wife. Okay, I'll be neutral then. But I think properly, not even secretively, I think properly, he would view Biden as an extension of his administration where he does not trust or view the Clintons in that fashion. So I think his Justice Department has been timing this out. The emails and some other things that may yet come out will sink Hillary's boat. Not only are these poll numbers got the Democrats in a panic, but I think now they are looking, because Bernie Sanders, let's face it, guys, is not, I mean, he's a declared socialist. He is not, even in this fallen country now, he is not a viable candidate, 72 years old, declared socialist. So then we've got to go with Joe Biden. Now, we know that Joe's a stumbling bum and not worth much, but he's at least more appealing, and he can hold up the specter of his son on his deathbed saying, oh, Dad, you got to run for president.
Right.
And at least he doesn't have some of the baggage that the Clintons do, for Lord's sake. So I think you'll likely see Joe Biden be their flag-waving candidate, and we've got to have somebody to beat him, and without a Donald Trump third party, we need somebody to beat him straight up, and we've got a bunch of them, Brian. We've got a bunch of strong candidates who can beat Biden straight up, but Tom, we can't have the third party.
Put your phones on just a second. Yes, Frank, go ahead.
Well, I've heard the thought that Barack Obama is grooming his own little mini-me to run against Hillary. What do you guys think or have heard of that?
You mean, are you talking about Biden?
No.
Who's the mini-me?
Well, that he's hand-selecting his own mini-me.
Well, who's that?
Who?
Obama.
Well, okay. Yeah. Well, I understand that, Frank.
No, I don't know. I don't know who it is.
You've got to have somebody on the horizon at this point. Now, before this, Brian said that Biden could get in. He could pick Barack Obama as the vice president, and he can't, because constitutionally you have to have a vice president that can constitutionally serve. Something happens to the president, so that's out. Bill Clinton can't be a vice president for Hillary if she wanted him. Those things can't happen.
That was just a theory that somebody ran past me the other day.
Well, tell him that's not possible.
Yeah, what you're suggesting makes sense, because he has to be eligible to take the top
but
office.
how about a Biden-Hillary ticket? Would she stoop that low?
I don't know that, unless she was absolutely desperate and maybe this kept her out of jail or something, she might take it.
Yeah.
But, other than that, no. And I don't think even as a VP she brings much, because obviously the women don't even care for her. What asset does she bring to a ticket?
You mentioned something about Biden. I saw a report on television last night, and gosh darn it, I can't believe I can't trust network TV anymore. It's just so sad. But that Hillary sucked up all the money. That there are nobody left that Biden can put together, because they're saying it's $1 billion campaign. It's a $1 billion campaign.
Soros stepped up for some big money, and George Soros is as reprehensible a human being as walking the earth today.
How do you really feel about it, Tom?
As a teenager, he was Jew. He turned and he worked with the SS to ferret out his own people to send them to the death camps. And he said those are some of the happier times in his life. This guy has destroyed countries by currency manipulation. He's as reprehensible an individual, and yet he's one of the biggest donors to the Democrat Party, which should surprise no one.
Right.
Well, and you'll see Tom Steyer come in and dump in a bunch of money as well, I'm sure.
Mr. Global Warming out there.
Mr. Global Warming, right.
Well, so in this room, who thinks Biden's getting in? Because now every piece I hear, and on his deathbed, his son Beau said, Dad, I really want you to run for president. Okay. My gosh, that's got to be worth some votes there.
Frank just gave him a thumbs down, so that also further gets my hand up in the air. I think Joe Biden gets in, and I think there's at least a coin flip chance that he's their nominee.
Well, if you have any, everything we've said horrible about Barack Obama in the last 6.5 years is true. His followers should be very, very happy with him. He's come through for them. It would be just like him to pull a big deal at the end of this. And I think you said it, Tom. Hillary, you want to go to prison? Because we'll get you there.
Yeah.
This attorney general will take you down. Mm-hmm. So you can either walk quietly, or you can allow Mr. Biden to become the next president.
And support him with all you've got.
Wow. Well, Brian, kind of like caffeinated thoughts, right? Just a nice, calm conversation. No big surprises.
What do you think? Do you think Biden gets in? Do you think he's a nominee?
It's too early to tell as far as I'm concerned,
Tom.
Well,
we're spitballing. We're predicting. What do you predict?
I'm going to say no, simply because I'm not prepared to believe that they're actually going to take down Hillary.
Okay, but you see these drastically declining poll numbers. They're in a panic. They know they need a savior, and Hillary imploded in 2008. She's imploding now. She's no better. She's worse. She looks 8 years older, and this is not.
I actually hope you're right, but I'm just not prepared to think they're going to do it.
Remember, guys, we can beat Hillary.
Oh yeah,
we can beat Hillary.
We can beat Uncle Joe too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian Myers was here. Tom Duster has been here. Frank's been doing a great job producing. I think we were almost perfect today. He'll get closer. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Today, go home. Page 2. Forgive somebody who needs forgiveness. And as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. I'll see you in church.